Okie dokie. Well, it's April 17th, 2026. Been around a month since my last update, so I thought I would try to do something tonight to post on YouTube and give kind of an update of everything that's going on, because this is grain free me has kind of taken a completely different path than what I had originally started out planning on dealing with. You know, originally this was just supposed to be kind of a, originally it started out as a cookbook idea for people like me, disabled people, elderly people. And the more I work with it, the more I've gone through the recipes, it just keeps growing. That's the simplest way I can put it. I wish it would be simpler, to be completely honest. This is not, this is really not the direction I wanted to go. For those of you that don't know, I have MCAS, which really limits my energy. There's a lot of great documents out there and websites. I like to simplify it and just say it's broken battery syndrome. That's what it probably should be called. But you have so many other medical conditions that have the same symptoms. Things like long COVID, for example. Epstein-Barr virus reactivation. It's so complex. The more I started working on this, I started all of this just as like I said earlier, just a selfish, I had to ask myself the question, what's going to happen to me if something happens? Because I also have avascular necrosis of both my hips, and eventually they're just going to give out. And there's nothing I can do about that. So I had originally just thought about this as, making a cookbook that I could give to past providers, caregivers, hospitals, rehab centers, etc. And then as my condition has progressed, I really had to look at everything else. I went through a couple of years of my dad with colon cancer, and now I'm dealing with a 79-year-old mom with Crohn's, colitis, and on a morphine pump. It just got so much bigger than I had thought about 4 or 5 years ago. So I've been trying to do this bit by bit. And I have videos up on YouTube. Some of it talks about the conditions I deal with. Some of it talks about the food. Some of it talks about the recipes that I was creating. And now just, over this last few months, I've just, it's hard to explain, but the puzzle pieces are kind of falling into place. And I've been trying really hard because every little puzzle piece that goes in opens up a different picture of that puzzle. And then I end up looking for other pieces for that puzzle to explain everything. Here's where we're sitting tonight, okay, for an update. Over the last month, I have not only been working on the recipes, I've been working on the website, especially trying to bring all of this into the website. There is no easy aspect of this. I've tried tackling it from 10 different directions, and it just keeps going back to the same place. You've got to build this, Trevor. You've got to do something different. Might take another 3 or 4 years, but when you get to that point, it's going to help so many people. So I kind of put together a summary here. So in the last month, I've basically done a full website rebuild over at grainfreeme.com, which included updates to my About page, which is basically the full origin story. King Lake flood, the crash in 2019-2020, having to convert kitchens and dining rooms into stool friendly, disabled friendly kind of recipes. My community page. It was always in the back of my mind, but it really started hitting home here the last couple of weeks. So my community page on my website will eventually have like an AOL or Yahoo chat room built into it for a big reason. Facebook, TikTok, Discord, any of the social media stuff, they have what generally is going to be called support groups. But they're not. In my experience, I've been a part of every single one of them for the last 6 years. They're not support groups. They're marketing tools that people are using to sell a product, give false hope, or they're just a group of what I like to call crabs in a bucket. People that just want to drag each other down, feel miserable. I'm not that type of person. So that's a huge part of the community page that I'm going to be working on. The licensing page part of the website I've really struggled with, because how do you find a food truck operator or brick and mortar store that could isolate the food, my recipes? How could they isolate those recipes to guarantee it safe for people like me? I would give anything to order DoorDash or go out with a couple of friends and hit up a restaurant and see my logo in that window. And for other people like me, it's going to just get bigger and bigger and bigger down the road. So I really have to work on that still. It's getting there, bit by bit. The medical library. Well, let's talk about that one for a second. 49 pages. 49 pages of medical conditions. And 5 of those in particular were the psychological, emotional aspects, relationship aspects. The medical side of it is one thing, but when you start getting into the emotional, personal relationships, it gets a bit tricky. And it was, to be completely honest, a bit hard for me to put all of that together. It's a lot of life experience, a lot of bad memories throwing out there that I know firsthand that a lot of people, the majority of people, go through. It was very, very important that I got that posted to the website. And going back to that aspect, anything that I do post on my page, I'm very strict about only sharing peer-reviewed, real research. People my age and younger, if you go and talk to a doctor, there's a catchphrase, Dr. Google, which a lot of the times is really, if you go Google something, it's not going to give you those peer-reviewed actual medical science articles. So everything on my page is research, actual research, medical research driven. It's not a opinion piece. It's not junk science. It's the best information that I could find. And going back to that, I've got the on the medical page, we've got autoimmune disorders, metabolic disorders, post-viral, GI, neurological, connective tissue, and then also when you have multiple conditions that stack up that a lot of doctors will miss. Going back just a little bit, the emotional relationship category that I added this month, doctors, caregivers, loved ones, 5 pages about that. How do you deal with that kind of, if you are in a relationship, if you're a spouse or a family member, or you have kids or a parent, elderly parent especially, how do you work that in to all of it? So all of that is up and live on the web page. Getting to the recipe system. Now, this one has had to go on the back burner. I've been working through a lot of recipes, and unfortunately I keep bumping into things that, my energy, I just don't feel like getting in front of the camera that day and recording a video. I'm going back and rebuilding all my original recipes. My chaffle recipe from 3 years ago, pretty spot on. I'm trying to improve it a little bit. Eggs got a little bit wonky. Some of the almond flour I've been working with is, I don't know, a little bit sweeter than I like. I am seeing improvements though. Like the, the Golden Hen boxed egg whites. that I've used for quite a few years has actually gotten back to just boxed egg whites without any preservatives or anything else listed on the ingredient label. That's huge. But again, that takes me back to a point where I have to start the recipe completely over from scratch. I went through the point of being so tired and not up to shredding my own cheese. And all of the bags of pre-shredded cheese that I got ended up having so much extra tapioca starch or, preservatives, anti-caking agents is what they like to call it. I couldn't even cook a pizza. If I used a pre-shredded bag of mozzarella, it just turned it into a clump of wax. That's not something anybody wants to eat. So back to square one. Back to shredding by hand. Oh, what else do we got here? So the recipes, let me finish that section off. The recipes are still coming. I'm just having to rework things, which is great. That's a learning experience. I'm not going to take it as a negative. I'm not going to just throw in the towel. It's just, okay, I have to look at a different way to make sure that other people don't have to deal with this down the road. So on that aspect, we've got the bread and bun chaffles, we've got the tortilla wraps, we've got the pizza crusts, we've got dry seasoning mixes. I had really good luck with a chili recipe, chili spice mix that just took me back to my childhood, which is kind of the whole point of all of this. Creating and finding the way to replicate recipes. And I pulled the ingredient list up for Aldi's taco mix seasoning today. It's like 15 ingredients and only one of them was spices. It was cornstarch, wheat starch, soy, MSG, sugar, chili powder, I think, was the only ingredient. No. Just no. And every time, it's like with French fries. They keep adding wheat and corn flour, 15 different preservatives. It doesn't have to be that way. Let's get back to straight up ingredients. And that goes the same for, the pizza sauces that I'm creating, ranch dressing mixes. Just, it is just getting huge, which is great. It gives me something to keep working on. Gives other people a chance to come in and work with me too. I had thought about maybe reading through all of the pages that I'd worked on over the last month. Microsoft Edge has and I think Google Chrome has a read out loud option too. And I had tried that a couple times and said, maybe I should just do the audiobook style kind of thing. Not worth it. I read through a couple of my pages and it's not worth it. I'll try to maybe condense things eventually, but I'm not going to read through each page just trying to get a couple extra YouTube clicks. So that one's off the board. Let's see, where else? Well, I guess I should probably talk about the guild aspect for a quick reference here before I call it a night. The guild, the commercial license, one couple things that I haven't finished off yet. So I got really thinking hard about how does this all come together? And because anybody could just go over to the website. Once the recipes are live, someone could buy the recipe and feed their family, help themselves. That's great. I had to think about, well, what if it's someone like me that can't cook for themselves every day? What if it's someone that doesn't have the equipment to batch cook, or has a dehydrator for stuff like blueberry and apple cinnamon waffles, cupcakes, etc. So I built the guild page on my website. And that's going to be a membership kind of thing. The whole point of that is, so let's say you become a guild member. Maybe you live in Chicago. Maybe you live in Fremont. That would be great if you did, because then I could get away from having to do this stuff myself. The guild is going to be, and it's like an apprenticeship. Okay, so you start out with what you can do. Maybe, like the cheapest way to get started would be doing a vacuum sealer. So you need maybe $130 Nesco vacuum sealer, which is what I would recommend. A good Sharpie. If you had a printer that you can print labels on, that would be great. You don't even need a full printer. You could get a mail label creator. But there's 35 states that do have cottage food regulations. A lot of them are pretty close to what Nebraska considers. There's ways around that for being a personal chef, per se. So I'm kind of still working through all of that legal aspect, mumbo jumbo kind of stuff, but here's the idea with the guild. Let's say you're a disabled person like I am, and you only have 2,600 steps a day. You could, if you had a vacuum sealer and bags, a digital scale for measuring things out, and a label printer, you could start a local chapter of Grain-Free Me, just doing the dry parts of the mixes. Almond flour, psyllium husk, baking powder, or even simpler, getting into doing the spice mixes. Making taco seasoning, chili seasoning, ranch dressing packets. You can step that up. If you have a dehydrator, you could dehydrate blueberries and apples and potatoes. You could step that up a little bit more and hook up with a neighborhood neighbor who has a garden and they have extra tomatoes and carrots and onions, and you could dehydrate all of that stuff. So the guild would be totally dependent on your area. But the idea is hooking up with other people in the area that are celiac, diabetic, HFI, and need a clean food supply. You know, if you want to cook tacos, I don't know if there's a taco seasoning on the market today that doesn't have 15 poisons. And they are. When you break it down, those are poisons. They're fillers. They're not. If I'm going to buy a taco seasoning packet, I want it to be taco seasoning, not corn flour and wheat flour and soy. It's like drinking water. You know, if I'm gonna drink water, I don't want it to be filled with microplastics and fluoride or antidepressants and all the stuff that comes through the typical pipeline nowadays. The other huge aspect on that is just when you sell local to friends, neighbors, your local community, you're not going to poison 50,000 people. Look at everything. I mean, every single recall for Listeria, E. coli, Salmonella that we've had for the last 10 years. Keep it small. Environmentalists should love this idea. You know, you're not shipping things. You may have to have stuff shipped into you because not everybody in your area makes almond flour, but a lot of people could do this locally. You could make your own herb garden in your kitchen. Cut it up, dehydrate it. Buy a $100 dehydrator. $130 vacuum sealer. Little things like that. So, yeah, it's getting so much bigger than what I had intentionally started off with a cookbook, just so I could give it to a past provider that might be able to cook for me when my hips give out and my MCAS gets too bad that I can't get out of bed anymore. It's such a big opportunity. We have the chance to really change how our food system works. Not just here, across the world. You know. So I went on a little bit longer than I meant to. Ended up being 30 minutes instead of 10. I'm going to leave it at that. Guys, go check out the website. It was a lot of work, and I'm pretty proud of everything I put together up to this point. If you have suggestions, I finally got the contact page working, so if you want to email me a comment, you can. If you want to reach out to me, you can like and subscribe and try to private message me through Facebook. All the links are on the webpage now, too. Go check it out. I'm looking for people to work with. Go read the whole page. You know, I laid it out as best I could. And if you're interested at what I'm trying to build here, reach out to me, seriously. Like, subscribe, ring the bell if you haven't yet. Recipes will be coming. I've got like 30 videos to edit and post as soon as I get the recipes actually figured out completely. Thanks for stopping by. I am signing out and heading to bed. Have a happy Friday, all. Hopefully talk soon. And take care. Signing out from Fremont, Nebraska, and grain-free me.